Hello. Today we're going to look at this really nice sketch from Lavannya Suressh. This sketch draws an abstract skyline scene with randomly positioned and sized buildings. It creates a drawing with a lot of detail, and it does it with probably less than 50 lines of code if you take out the comments. This code can be pretty hard to read though. There are a couple of main reasons. The first one is that it's not consistently formatted. That's an easy fix. We'll just run tidy code. The second issue is a little deeper. The variable names and the property names in this code are very general. x1, y1, x2, x3. And down here in the building class, this.a, this.b, this.c. JavaScript doesn't care what you name your variables, but good names that explain the purpose of your variables can help make your code much easier to read, understand, and maintain. We can find out what x1, y1, and x4 do by changing their values and seeing what changes. As this comment indicates, these values are related to the perspective drawing. x1 and x4 are the horizontal positions of the vanishing points, and y1 is the shared vertical position of the vanishing points. Let's rename these to be a little more clear. We'll also add some comments to explain these in more detail. These three variables, x3, x4, and x5, aren't used. Let's get rid of them. Since these values don't change while the program runs, let's assign their values when we declare them, and let's make them constants instead of variables. I usually use all caps for my constants. There's a few places where there's leftover code from earlier versions. Let's clear that out so we don't have to think about it while we read the code. Let's also make more specific names for this A, this B, and this C. This.B is the middle of the building, or the ridge between the green and the gray. This.A and this.C are the position of the left side and the right side of the building. They're found by taking the middle of the building and adding a random width and depth. It might be useful to have this width and depth later, so let's keep them as properties as well. That brings us to the draw building method. This method does most of the work in the sketch, and it has some pretty complicated lines. Let's first simplify this for loop by moving some of the calculating it does elsewhere. This code determines the top of the building. Let's make that a property on the building. This calculates a random number between 0 and 15 with low bias. This number is used to control the spacing between each of the lines. Rather than calculate this in line, let's make a function to calculate a low biased random. I had to name this underscore min so that it wouldn't be the same name as the function min in P5. Now that we've moved some of the complexity out of this for statement, it's short enough to fit on a single line. This part of the code draws the left and the right side of the building. So this expression is pretty long and complicated, and it's a little bit hard to reason about. One thing we can do to make this easier to read is to break up this work over multiple lines. That'll make each line a little smaller and easier to understand, and will also allow us to put in comments to explain each part of the process. This code right here is calculating where this end of a green line should be. We need to take the point where the green line starts and trace along the vanishing point to find that spot. This finds the vertical distance from the horizon line and the horizontal distance from the vanishing point and divides them to find a slope of the line from the vanishing point up to our line that we're drawing. This takes our slope and multiplies it by the distance along our line from the vanishing point we want to travel, and then adds our horizon. Now I've broken up that more complicated line into a few lines. Find the slope, find that y position, draw the line. Let's do the same with the right-hand side. This is a little bit easier to read because it's broken up over multiple lines, but I think it would also help to have a couple of comments to explain what's happening. This method is called draw building. It's all lowercase, but it should be camel case. And since we're already in the building class, we can just shorten this method to draw. We can rewrite this for loop using for each. We could also rewrite this for loop, but I'm not sure it would make it clearer. This is almost done, but there's one or two things left over. Earlier I said I thought it might be useful to have the depth and width properties, but I don't actually use them down here. So let's take them out since they're not being used. I also misspelled bias, so I fixed that here. And that looks pretty good. I think the code's going to be easier to read now, which should make it easier to keep working on and add new features to.